From Great Neck to Oyster Bay, the communities of Nassau County's North Shore are all unique with diverse populations and important issues. I'm Jason Samel, your host for North Shore Now. Each week, I bring you the newsmakers, politicians, artists, and activists, and interesting people who have an impact on our communities. North Shore Now is your source for what's happening on Long Island's Gold Coast.
Welcome to North Shore Now.
Welcome to North Shore Now. I am your host, Jason Samel. This program will focus on issues concerning the residents of Nassau County's North Shore. I'll be joined later in the program by music production extraordinaire Michael Epstein, known famously as none other than Epi, owner of the legendary My Father's Place of Roslyn. He's here today to discuss his revival of this incredible music venue. But my first guest is Will Casale with us from Glen Cove, a student activist from Glen Cove High School who is one of the core organizers of the March of Our Lives that took place just a few weeks ago in Glen Cove. He will also be joined today by Congressman Tom Suozzi to discuss gun violence and more. So, Will and Tom, thank you so much for coming on our show today. Really appreciate you taking the time out of busy classes, I'm sure, in high school. And Tom, Congressman Tom Suozzi, thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy day saving our country. We're here today to talk about gun violence and specifically to talk about the march that just happened a couple of weeks ago across the country and right here in Glen Cove. Will, can you tell me what initiated your interest initially in getting involved in something like this? It's a big issue to take on. You're busy with Regents exams, I'm sure. How do you find the time for it? Why take the time to do it?
Well, Jason, when I first heard about the Parkland shooting, my initial reaction was just to tune it out. We've had so many similar tragedies lately in our country, and as a positive person, I just wanted to tune it out initially. But then what I saw was really baffling was the groundswell that was associated with this in terms of these kids using this tragedy as a platform to push for change.
Yeah.
And once I saw those kids in Florida taking action, I immediately wanted to be a part of it.
That's great. And you were part of another action even prior to that having to do with gun laws, weren't you?
Well,
or having to do with gun violence of some sort?
Not specifically, but before the Parkland shooting, when I just saw there was a lot of hate in the country, I was pushing to bring a program to the school that actually was there a few years ago.
What's that called?
Rachel's Challenge.
Okay, tell me about
this program. It's essentially about breaking down the walls between students so they can understand each other better.
Okay.
And, you know, hopefully as a preventative measure for students feeling alienated or wanting to harm each other. So it's about helping the students better understand each other.
Okay, great. And are you still working on that as well?
Yes, absolutely. Now that we are finished with the march, I'm really taking strides to bring it back to the district.
Cool. Are you really excited to have joined the ranks of, really activism and really start to have your voice heard, feel like your voice is being heard?
Absolutely. Myself and my committee members, we feel like change is happening.
Now, how many people joined this incredible, what I heard was an absolutely incredible march? How many people ended up joining you?
Well, it's really remarkable how it started with one meeting a few weeks ago. I think we had about 15 people at the meeting. It was students like myself and a few parents. And then all of a sudden, a few weeks later, we have nearly 1,000 people marching down the main road in Glen Cove. It was truly remarkable.
Well, Tom, were you there?
Yeah. No, I was actually at a rally at SUNY Farmingdale. Let me first congratulate Mr. Casale and all the young people that are getting involved. There's something very different happening in the country right now. I've been involved in public life as a mayor of my hometown, Glen Cove, and as county executive of Nassau County for 25 years, and now I'm in Congress. And I have never seen people involved the way they're involved now. And that was before these beautiful rallies we saw last week related to gun violence prevention. People are paying attention more than they have in a long time. And now this movement by young people, I believe, can be something that we've all, read about. I grew up in the 60s and 70s. I was just a kid, though. And so, we always wondered when that moment was going to come when people got involved like they did back then. This is a chance for that to happen. And it's got to be led by young people. And teenagers can't discount how powerful they can be and how much they can affect their parents and their teachers and society as a whole by speaking out for what the truth is and what is right. Because the adults have failed, especially on this issue of gun violence, but there's so many other issues. They have failed, and they need to be shaken up. And young people doing this can make a dramatic difference. And it's not enough just to rally. It's not enough to post on Facebook or Instagram. It's not enough to tweet. It's got to be that people get organized, they get registered to vote, and they vote out people that vote the wrong way. So, people are so cynical about politics these days. It's so small and petty, and everybody stinks, and nobody's any good. You know what? We send people off to other countries to die in wars throughout our history for freedom and democracy. You know what that is? Politics and government.
That's the truth.
And we need to start treating it with the respect and the dignity that it deserves, because these are serious topics. Gun violence is a serious topic. Immigration is a serious topic. Healthcare is a serious topic.
Couldn't be happier that these kids are standing up. I mean, there was a going back to when there was Egypt Revolution and then Occupy Wall Street. There was a spark that happened, but it died. It died really quick, and it didn't have the older generation attached to it. It didn't have the younger generation attached to it. And now this, and people are coming out, and that spark is happening, and it's starting to burn bright. Will, tell me some of the the issues that you had to go through in order to create this march. I mean, it's a big undertaking. I've done it myself, created marches and actions such as that. Tell me how that was.
Right. Well, this was obviously a first for me, organizing something like this.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of logistics associated. Well, first of all, we had to get approved by the city.
Okay.
So I went before City Hall, supported by my committee members.
You spoke at the council that day?
Spoke at the council that day.
Yeah.
Gave a statement why I think we should have the march and what we would need, which was the roads closed and support by the city.
A lot of logistics.
Yeah. And they fully supported it. They were absolutely fantastic, helping us organize it.
That's wonderful.
And then making it public, which all over social media, we posted it all over the schools.
Couldn't get away from it. I mean, I saw it on my news feed every 5 minutes.
Saw it everywhere.
Yeah.
I was so happy with how well the committee members were doing, making it public, getting it out there, making everyone know about it.
Yeah.
And hence the great turnout ultimately.
Yeah. Good. So what's in your eyes? And this is a very, very personal question, right? Because everybody's got a different answer to it. So what's endgame for you? What is the point of it? Obviously, we want to prevent mass shootings. Obviously, we don't want kids killed in our schools. But what's the endgame? What can be done to change it? Where do you think we should go?
Well, first of all, Jason, I think that I think we need to increase the age you are allowed to buy a gun. I think it should be at least 21 years old. I don't think 18-year-olds should be able to buy a gun.
Agreed.
Second of all, I don't think, as controversial as this is, I don't think assault rifles are necessary by any means. Weapons designed to kill a large amount of people or a large amount of things at once, I don't think are necessary. And
AR-15s, along with the bump stock, can put out, I think it's something like 7 to 8 bullets a second. It's unbelievable.
It is. And now I'm certainly not the kind of person to say we need to repeal the Second Amendment. Nobody should have any guns.
Okay.
I don't think so. I just think
we should be armed as a society.
I do think so, to an extent.
Okay.
I do think there needs to be more restrictions, and people need to be willing to sacrifice some of our current freedoms in an effort to gain some security and safety.
Yeah.
What I think is the most important thing at this point is just being willing to have the conversation with each other.
That's great. And Tom, so what do you think that where do you think that the laws need to go? I've watched, I actually watched Donald Trump's speech that he gave not too long ago on to all of the senators, and one of I don't agree with much that he has to say, but one of the few things that I did agree that he had to say was he's sitting there talking to congressmen and senators and saying, why during all of this time, during all of these other shootings, all of these years, 30 years we've been in this situation where we have mass shootings, multiple, almost yearly, and nothing has been done. Why has nothing been done, Tom? And I certainly put no blame on you. You are a freshman congressman up there, but you're going to make some change. What can be done, and why has nothing been done yet?
Well, the first thing, I got so many things I want to talk to you about. We have to add in background checks, and we have to add in taking guns away from people with the history of domestic violence and felons and mental health issues and drug and alcohol issues. But
sure.
But the reason nothing's been done is the same reason nothing's been done in so many different issues in the country, is because in America right now there are...
Is it just partisan politics? Because a lot of people are just blaming that.
It's not as simple as that.
Okay.
Everybody say that's a simplistic way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Why is the country so divided? There are 435 seats in the House of Representatives. Of those 435 seats in the House of Representatives, 380 of them, 190 Democratic and 190 Republican seats, are safe seats. You can't lose because they've been gerrymandered to protect the Republican incumbents and gerrymandered to protect the Democratic incumbents.
Another big issue going on right now.
If you can't lose the seat, and the only way you can lose is by losing a primary.
Right.
Who votes in the primaries? People at the fringes vote in the primaries. For the
Very
Republicans, it's the far right. For the Democrats, it's the far left.
Right.
If a Republican was to dare compromise on background checks, which is 90% of American support, if a Republican was to compromise on the issue of taking guns away from people that are mentally unstable, or people that are convicted felons, or people that are domestic violence abusers, or have drug and alcohol problems, they would be attacked in a primary from the far right, which is a very small group of people. It's 10% of the people vote in the primaries.
Sure.
But that's what's holding everybody up. The Democrats are pandering to the far left, the Republicans are pandering to the far right, and nobody's doing anything in the middle to actually solve the problems. That's why we need more people involved and paying attention and participating in electoral politics. Instead of saying it all stinks and everybody's a bum and nobody's any good, we need more people to pay attention and get involved. That's why this young people's movement is so important, because most of us agree that something needs to be done. How can it be that these guys won't wake up and change things? Well, they're pandering to a very small group of people that participate in primary elections. That's where it all comes from.
Would you say that any part of the issue also is big money in politics, NRA money in our government?
Yes, it is a big part of it. It helps to foment that participation of that far-right radical group. But, we talk about the NRA, the NRA, the NRA. The NRA is now not the most radical gun group in America. Now there's a group called Gun Owners of America. Yeah. And if the NRA, which has in the past compromised on certain things, were to compromise and say, listen, yes, we think we should have background checks for every commercial sale in America, and you shouldn't be able to buy a gun at a gun show or buy a gun online without going through a background check, then the Gun Owners of America would say, aha, the NRA is selling out. Come join our organization instead. So now the NRA is afraid of a group that is further to the right than they are.
Yeah. What is Congress do? What is Congress doing right now to actually change what is going on? What is Congress doing right now to actually listen to these students and make change immediately?
Regarding gerrymandering or regarding gun violence?
We'll get to gerrymandering another time. Regarding gun violence today.
Regarding gun violence, nothing's happening. Absolutely nothing.
Nothing's happening. No movement. Nobody's talking about it.
I'm in a group called the Problem Solvers Caucus, 24 Democrats and 24 Republicans.
Yeah.
We have a compromise. We have an agreement as to certain things that we could do to try and address some of these issues that exist. And we can't get it onto the floor. Wow. Because people are afraid to put it on the floor because they're afraid of primaries because of this gerrymandering problem.
So Trump was right. Trump was right when he stared everybody down and said, "You guys are just afraid. You guys are scared."
That's what's happening, but people have been saying that for a long time, and it hasn't worked because we need to focus on these seats. Politicians will act when they're afraid that they'll lose their race. Yeah. I'm in one of the seats in America that could go either way. It's neither Democratic nor Republican. It's a half and half seat. You know what? It's harder for me. I got to work a lot harder. I got to listen to everybody's opinion. The Republicans, the Democrats, the Independents. I got to go out and talk to people. I have a town hall every month. I got to work my brains out. It's good for my constituents. Too many of these seats are safe.
Talking about the town halls that you're having, I got to bring up something a bit controversial that was in the news recently. I'll give you a minute to give me your answer on it. You were quoted at a recent meeting that you had over in Huntington. I can't pull the exact quote at the moment, but it was alluding to the fact that if the President of the United States does not listen to the courts, that Americans should potentially think about using the Second Amendment, which is to take up arms. Can you talk to me a little bit about that statement that you made?
Well, first of all, this was not about this president in particular, and this is not about an armed resistance against President Trump.
Okay.
This is about what happened. What's the purpose of the Second Amendment? Why does it exist?
Right.
The Second Amendment doesn't exist so people can go hunting, even though that's very much a big part of it now.
Sure.
The Second Amendment was created as the Second Amendment. I mean, right after the First Amendment for free speech, was because the colonists were concerned about the way Britain had treated them.
Yeah. And
they wanted there was very much a revolutionary spirit in the country which said if your government ever becomes a tyranny, which is It ignores the people. It ignores the Congress. It ignores the other branch of government, the courts. What if the leader of our country was to ignore the people, was to ignore the Congress that said we have to do this law? And he says, I'm not doing that law. Ignore the other branch of government, the court, saying you're breaking the rules, you have to do it this way. No, I'm not going to listen. And they were to bring out the military. Yeah. That's the purpose of the Second Amendment, is the right to bear arms. So that, and it was really initially designed for militias, state militias, where the states could revolt against the federal government. Yeah. And I just simply explained what the purpose of the Second Amendment was. A week later, it was picked up by the New York Post, and other fake news was spread throughout the country. So it was a far-right movement.
Thank you for explaining that.
Misrepresented my position.
Will, so what are we doing from here out? What's the move forward? What are you doing with your life moving forward? You got a few seconds to answer that. What are we doing with your life moving forward? And then where do we think this movement is going? What's the next steps to take?
Well, like Tom said, the biggest thing that people my age, 17 years old, can do is once you get old enough to vote.
Got to get that voting block.
That is the biggest thing. And then you
vote them out.
Like I said, with the Rachel's Challenge, I think it's important to have programs like that in the school so students don't feel alienated.
You're going to continue to work on that after you're out of school?
Absolutely. Going to continue to work on that.
Beautiful.
And but the biggest thing is absolutely to vote and to have the conversation, to not be intimidated, to have the conversation.
Yeah. Awesome. And Tom, what do you recommend from here out? Listen, one of the biggest issues that I see with marches all throughout my time as an activist is that there's so often a march, a rally, and then that's it. It's in the news for a day, and then it's out, and then nothing happens, and then Congress stops listening. What do we do next?
I don't think this is going to go away. Let me say that in my election for Congress in 2016, which was a presidential election year, 330,000 people voted in my district. It's projected that in 2018, which is no presidential race, it's called an off-year election, only 170,000 people will vote.
Wow.
And 85% of the people who vote will be 44 years old or older.
Wow.
Young people do not participate in elections. Most people don't participate in primary elections. We need the people.
Everything points to that.
Hopefully, led by the young people to make their voices heard and keep this movement going. This is their time to change history. Don't underestimate how powerful they are. Will, I want to congratulate you again on doing a great job organizing the people in Glen Cove. There were 800 marches around the world, 700 in the United States of America, 12 on Long Island alone. You guys did a great job in Glen Cove. We're very proud of you.
It was amazing. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Will, so much for coming. After the break, we will be joined by Congressman Tom Suozzi, and we'll be talking about the Glen Cove waterfront, his time in office as our congressman, as well as gerrymandering. You're listening to North Shore Now on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org.